The massive U.S. defense budget doubled since 2001. The U.S. intelligence budget, who knows? We didn't have something called the Department of Homeland Security budget when 9/11 happened. Now we do. It got $42 billion last year. The investment in innovation and energy and human capital and sacrifice that America has put into security over the past 10 years is really mind-bending. It really reflects a massive national effort. And maybe there's waste and fraud and abuse, and maybe a lot of that money has gone down a rat hole or a spider hole. But even if you do not take that tack on it, even if it hasn't, let's say you're being totally uncritical about the character of that spending. If you're just trying to be honest about how much of it there has been, what is the effect of that type of massive reorganization of American priorities? What is the effect of that on the strength of our country, on the economic strength of our country? In 1999, before 9/11, this was median household income in America. Here's what happened in the years since 9/11. Median household income has dropped by 5%. As that average income has sunk over the past decade, the basic cost of living has gone off the charts. Here's what happened to health care costs, for example, over the last decade. The average annual premiums for a family in 2000, just over $6,000. In 2010, that figure rose to more than $13,000. How about something like home heating oil? Basics, right? February 2000, a gallon of home heating oil was $1.35. Now that'll be $3.88 a gallon, please. As incomes in this country have stayed flat, and as the basic costs of living have gone up, making the median American family materially more poor, we've also seen things like our education results decline. In 2000, the U.S. ranked 14th in science and 18th in math. By 2009, the U.S. was down to 17th in science and 25th in math. The result of all of this? Lower wages, higher living costs, poorer education. The result is the middle class in this country disintegrating. Income inequality is worse now than it has been in decades. The U.S. leading the way in economic inequality in the whole developed world. Now, as a measure of America's strength, the modern impossibility of the middle class is not something to feel romantic or wistful or, again, even ideological about, not at a time like this. But it is worth thinking about whether or not America has a strong, resilient economy. Rich people being really rich, that alone does not give you a strong economy or a strong nation. That can just be feudalism with cable. One of the great granular legacies of the last 10 years of American priorities is that 4 of the 5 wealthiest counties in the country are now in the Washington, D.C. Beltway. Think about that. The Forbes list of these counties says things like Fairfax County, Virginia is home to companies with strong connections to intelligence agencies like the CIA and the National Counterterrorism Center. Yeah, all that spending does buy you something. Buys you something here at home, in addition to buying you something abroad. Osama bin Laden's stated goal for the 9/11 attacks was to cause us to spend ourselves into oblivion. His goal was to do something cheap and radical and traumatizing that would cause us to react in a way that bankrupted us, so that what they couldn't take down by force or by ideological competition, we would take down ourselves by panic. Osama bin Laden, I'm happy to say, is now dead. And now we have a choice to make about whether the next decade of spending and policy and priorities will be one that makes us stronger, whether it'll be one that gets us back to competing on our own terms for our own goals. Joining us now is Eugene Robinson, MSNBC political analyst and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for The Washington Post. Gene, thank you so much for being here.
It's great to be here, Rachel.
Is there a political opportunity post-bin Laden to shift priorities, to shift our security priorities to include economic security and economic strength?
There should be that opening, and maybe there will be, Rachel. It'll take a while, I think, to absorb the death of bin Laden and to kind of figure out what page we have turned. I was in front of the White House the other night on Sunday night after the announcement had been made, and everybody talked about turning a page, but not about to what. And so let's see. I mean, that's one thing that I think this ought to represent, an opportunity to redirect some of the resources to where they're desperately needed.
Did the way that we have spent money on security, particularly on defense contracting and intelligence contracting in the past decade, have we, over 10 years, created a class of of powerful people and powerful rich companies who have benefited so much from the way we spent money after 9/11 that they'll now be this great interest group that's really able to stop any shift away from those spending priorities?
Oh, you bet. You bet we have. And you talked about that expansion. You noted that 4 of the 5 richest counties are right here in the Washington area. And you're going to have not just those companies, but elected representatives from around here lobbying, I think, probably fiercely, that spending not be drastically cut, because that would have a huge impact locally. And of course, those companies are not just local; they have branches and operations in other parts of the country as well. So yes, there is a new interest group, or a larger interest group. You know, Dwight Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex, and I think this is just a variation of that, only bigger.
Gene, what do you think is going to happen to the debate about the Afghanistan war after bin Laden's death? Obviously, we're sort of due for another round of debate about the war anyway, not only because it's getting dislocated from the traditional left-right axis. We're having more and more Republicans, for example, coming out and saying that it's time for the war to be wound down, but also because July is supposed to be when those surge troops, those extra troops that President Obama sent, are supposed to start coming home. Do you think the debate about the war is going to be any different now in the wake of bin Laden's death?
I think this definitely changes the debate. I think there will be people who say, mission accomplished. We went there to remember the reason we went there. It was Al-Qaeda. We drove them out. We decimated the organization, and now we have killed Osama bin Laden. It's time, at the very least, to reduce our presence there, to reduce our footprint, and to find a way out. And I think this gives ammunition and probably considerable popular support to those who want a real retrenchment of the U.S. position in Afghanistan, and not just a token withdrawal.
Eugene Robinson, MSNBC political analyst, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for The Washington Post. Gene, it is always great to see you. Thanks a lot, my friend.
Great to be here, Rachel.
The one piece of information, the one thing on which almost everyone now agrees, is that Osama bin Laden is dead. Beyond that, there are the incredible, compelling, thrilling narratives of what happened in the siege that killed him, how that all happened. The stories all feature tenacious spy work, daring decision-making, and superhuman courage. That said, the stories are all different. The stories all say that different things happened, different people did stuff, different numbers of people did stuff, they did stuff in different orders, and it had different effects. An attempt to clarify what is already a total